Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. First, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not responsible or liable for any misuse of this information. With that being said, I would also like to go over the images that will be shown in this video that may be copywritten. Please understand, under federal law, this is in reference to allow citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under Title 17 USC Section 107. So just keep that in mind. This is in reference to the images that I will be going over. Now, an overview of this video, I wasn't sure in particular what I wanted the title to be, but I wanted to show validity behind who the controllers are. So I may title this video Modern Day Slave Masters, a form of economic slavery. I'm going to go over some information I've been working on for a while. It's actually a combination. I could break this up into two separate parts. So this will be like a webinar. So without further ado, this is also like a freestyle. I had some images that I took in advance ahead of time, some information that I definitely want to go over for you guys. But this title of this video is in relation to this is a chart, as you guys can see right here, who owns the Federal Reserve. I want to say a lot of people think that this straw man theory is made up. The purpose and intent of this video, I intend to clear up some of the rumors out there, the hearsay. I intend to debunk some of the trolls and gatekeepers who have created a following to try to discredit this information and as a total scam or conspiracy theorist. I intend to provide valid evidence, validity behind what I'm going over. Also, I do give a disclaimer, so it is up to everyone to do their own research. However, this is based off of credible, valid research investigation. This chart actually was sent to me some years ago by a private investigator that I work with. Throughout the years, I worked with detectives, firefighters, EMS, people of that sort. So let's see, keep the current. I have this thing that pops up. I got to figure out how to. Okay, I hit that one. Hopefully that won't pop up again. I get that sometimes, but not to be distracted. But however, my intent is I want to clear up a lot of the rumors and hearsay that is going on out there. Hopefully you guys can hear me fine. This is sort of like a freestyle as well. So I may be jumping in different directions throughout this video to point out some things. But the beginning portion, this is an overview in case you're just joining me just now. This is Dorsey's Resource. I already gave a disclaimer. And also in accordance with the Fair Use Act that I went over earlier, I'll pull back up, it allows for under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder, because some of this information may be copywritten, and I'm saying in reference to if there's laws that I do go over, but the purpose is to provide validity. Some people say that you can't, you don't have validity online. You do have credible evidence on the internet. And I want to say these websites that I'm going over, you guys can see in real time. I'm on my desktop computer. You can still pull up. And I would recommend document them before it possibly could get shut down. So you will have the evidence of validity. But this video, I'm going to go over some really powerful action-packed information. And I really should, even though this is basic information, this is information that a lot of people who study in the redemption movement that don't have the proper information. When I meet people, there's a lot of hearsay that they try to dismiss this information as far as being conspiracy theory or invalid, not true. And once again, I intend to debunk those myths. A lot of the gatekeepers and many of you all that have contacted me, the few that I've allowed to reach out to me or have either sent me messages through my Twitter handle, my Facebook, etc., have given me validity. I want to thank all of those out there, the people that I met, men and women who know this information to be valid, to be absolutely credible. And the authenticity of the information that I go over, I want to let you all know out there is highly accurate. I do my level best to present accurate information. I will admit if I make a mistake or do something wrong, like even with the TDA movement, when a certain individual was challenging me on information, even though we discovered, obviously, it was the Federal Reserve was blocking those accounts, those transactions from going through. And many years ago, it was stated by an individual very high up in the private sector who I won't say. I can't remember if this, if he mentioned this at the event I attended or this was from a particular seminar, but I'm not saying his name. And he stated that years ago, those transactions they used to allow to go through, they did not bounce back with reversals. So this is something that they're doing to us that is very, very cruel. And it's a way to force people in a form of modern day economic financial slavery and involuntary servitude. I mean, this is really cruel for those who really know what's going on. Other people in the population are heavily brainwashed, are heavily misinformed. As one friend of mine figured out with this information, and they say in the so-called sovereign citizen movement, and keep in mind, that is an umbrella term. I was told that in grammar, you can't use two nouns in the way that they use that context is being used out of the proper context. And there's actually no such thing as a sovereign citizen. The State Department only has 4 or 5 official classifications of citizenship. Now, you guys will have to look that up, but don't quote me. They don't recognize any official form of citizenship called sovereign citizen. That is an umbrella term that gatekeepers and trolls created to try to discredit people from looking into this information or make people who study this type of information kooks, conspiracy theories, and crazies, etc. But as you guys will see from the information that I go over, I will want to clearly debunk many of those rumors and myths that you all have heard. And this information is going to be so powerful that I'm also going to mention to individuals. I do not do private consultations. I never have. Any information that I have shared is a courtesy. Any individuals that I've allowed to reach out to me, it's a courtesy. And I reserve the right to answer the phone or not answer the phone. I do work still a 9-to-5 job, a graveyard. I do recognize I'm still a slave. As a figure of speech, I even jokingly say I'll go to the slavery plantation. But I have learned some things from some people's sources. I do have contacts, and I keep those confidential to myself. And so I just want to make that clear. Do not, and I have to say this many times, do not contact me at this time. I do not provide private consultations. I will let you all know down the pipeline if I do. But in the event that is so, I feel as though, and I'll have to do a separate video, that I deserve to be compensated for my intellectual property, that from the type of breakdown, how can I, the way that I'm able to interpret the information so the individuals out there may understand. But I've had numerous people from different walks of life thank me behind the scenes. I could do a screen capture and show some of the messages, the inboxes that I received from people, that a lot of women too, believe it or not, behind the scenes, that have thanked me for the information. So this shows validity, that's valid, not made up or hearsay. And I'm showing you websites And I've even had a friend who was going to school in California studying for his PhD, and he even referenced, even if he mentioned he wasn't into all the conspiracy stuff, but he stated that at least in my videos, he noticed that I show evidence and he saw it was valid. You know, he wasn't into all of like the Illuminati, the stuff like that, but he acknowledged that. He told me at the time, some years ago, a guy I used to train with at a martial arts school. So without further ado, I'm going to get into things right now, but I just wanted to go over an overview so you guys understand that I'm clear and what I'm going over, and let's get started. So as this chart shows, particularly right here, you guys can pull up, and I'm going to jump over really quick to this other window. I want to pull up this U.S. national debt clock. As you guys can obviously see, as I take the cursor right here, the mouse, it's at 21,921,770,000,000, and etc. Still going up, counting, as you see in real time. But I want to show something else that I went over in a previous video. I said I wanted to do a screen capture for you guys so you all could see in more real time better, that it also in your lower middle right hand corner, it shows where I have the mouse at, where the real price of silver is supposed to be at. Notice that says 598 and I'll say Federal Reserve notes per ounce legally. And I went over that in the previous video. And won't many people say money, but currency. That's what the elites use. Some of them they don't say money, or they use funds, because legally the Federal Reserve note, it's copywritten, and that's why I pulled up certain images, by the way. But I'm using as a reference for educational purposes in reference to the Fair Use Act, by the way, which I already went over a couple times in my disclaimer. Now we go to coinflation.com. You see the price of silver here at the top, just focusing on silver, not gold, is at $15.68 per ounce. Let's update it in real time and see what is that. Okay, it's still at that amount. Sometimes it fluctuates. So, you know, before it was a little higher when I first checked earlier today. It was like $15.75 when I first looked at it, $15.75 for the spot value. And keep in mind, when you buy physical coin, there's like what they call a premium. It's like an unofficial tax, which is like you're exempted from paying the sales tax. The way that they set it up, I won't go into all the details about that, but many of you are already that are aware that purchase precious metals, and that is something important, something separately I was working on doing for a video that deals with prepping survival. It's related. There is a direct correlation with the discipline that I'm involved in with prepping survival culture, or the discipline that individuals who study precious metals plays a role. When I was at the this expo event that they had in Michigan some time ago for preppers or survivalists out there, I didn't know they actually had a coin dealer who was up there, and he had a business card, but the guy who his name was on the card wasn't there, but some people that were representatives of him, and I was explaining, I met him before, and when I described him, I broke the ice, and many people might not be aware that is another form of the survival discipline. Precious metals plays a role, but I won't go into that. This is not financial or legal advice either, just a reference. I did give a disclaimer, so everyone's going to have to do their own research and homework. I'm just going over this information. But notice what I showed you, it's at 1568. And if we go to this website right here, let's go back in time. It shows dollar to silver ratio 1913. It shows it was $2.65 per ounce during this time period. That's what the worth was for the dollar. See, it's saying the date. Then notice it's saying in red letters to the right of it, it's saying dollar to silver ratio now 598. So this is what it's supposed to be at. So they don't go over, they're not telling you, many people, that silver is manipulated because it's tied in with like you know, in the commodities market is heavily manipulated. And I hear there's groups that are suing, fighting to stop the manipulation that is going on, how they're artificially suppressing it. And there are those that say that individuals are doing us a favor for the people that are in the know. But mind you, if you're not purchasing physical silver, it's best to hold the physical. Then you can be setting yourself up to be in harm's way for what's coming down the pipeline. And some say possibly very soon by some things that are taking place with 5 countries. Recently, one of my sources contacted me several days ago and told me that 5 countries pulled out of the U.S. dollar as being, you know, one of the world's reserve currencies. And I won't once again go into all the details how that works, but some of you are already familiar with this information and know what I'm talking about. So without further ado, I wanted to go over, there's a lot of information to cover. Like I said, I could have say this for a whole separate webinar. I may have to break this down. But this information, for those out there who may not be aware, was also encoded in the movie Wizard of Oz years ago. And I'm going to read briefly. I may run through some things. I had another site that had some really good basic notes. Okay, this is the one. Okay. It said, what is Oz a symbol for? Ounces. You see right there, as you can see in real time. What is measured in ounces? Gold. What is the yellow brick road? Bricks or ingot bars of gold. The character known as the straw man represents that fictitious, all caps legal fiction, a person the federal U.S. government created with the same spelling as your birth. Remember what the straw man wanted from the Wizard of Oz, a brain. This is like telling you from an allegorical perspective what the movie was basically based off of. It says no juristic person, legal fiction, and that is an actual term. You can look up the definition behind. I did a previous video where I went over some of the definitions that are very important. So just keep that in mind for those out there who try to dismiss this information as being inaccurate. No, it's not. This information I'm going over is highly accurate for those in the know. It's just encrypted in a way. It says, what did he get in place of a brain to symbolize a certificate, a birth certificate for a new legal creation? He was proud of his new legal status plus all the other legalisms he was granted. Now he becomes the epitome of the brainless sack of straw who was given a certificate in place of a grain of common sense. Now this portion says, now what about the Tin Man? Does tax identification number recall anything to mind? Very interesting. The poor Tin Man just stood there mindlessly doing his work until his body literally froze and stopped functioning. He worked himself to death because he had no heart, no soul. This was to symbolize how many Americans work and are brainwashed within the system and work in our modern day society. Slavery is going on in a different form that's covert. Some refer to as economic or financial slavery, also known as involuntary servitude. It says, he's the heartless and emotionless creature robotically carrying out his daily tasks as though he were already dead. He's the ox pulling the plow and the mule toiling under the yoke. These days, his taskmasters just oil him nightly with beer and place him in front of hypnotic television until his very existence no longer has any meaning or value. His masters keep him cold on the outside and heartless on the inside in order to control any emotion or feeling that might arise. Interesting. Now I'll read this other part, then I'll jump to the next part. But you guys get the idea. How I just wanted to show how this movie was it's not a coincidence how this was encoded. The book was written some years ago. There was a book many years in the early 1900s. And I know there was one version of the book that came out before the movie, because the movie is based off of the book. And in the book version, Dorothy had silver slippers. And when she followed the yellow brick road, that symbolized the silver following the gold out the country. Now, I'm not reading off the script off of here. I'm just going off the top of the head from other documents I've read, because there are many different documents that give different breakdowns of the allegory and the symbolism from that movie and how that translates to what is going on in modern day commerce, and how the bankers that set up the Federal Reserve Act and many elites, believe it or not, in the know are aware of the symbolism in this movie. I won't go over how I know and how I've confirmed that, but I have shared that with a friend of mine that very heavily there's elites that are in the know, and many people who actually study the redemption education. This is something before a lot of documents were removed online, before Scribs made you have to sign up for a membership. They pulled a lot of the documents that used to be online where you could just pull them up for free. Now, there's some that you still can, actually. I just manually looked for pertaining, but there used to be a time where there was a plethora of information and certain articles related specifically to the redemption that drew the correlation to the Wizard of Oz. And now it says right here, the Cowardly Lion was always too frightened to stand up for himself. Of course, he was a bully and a big mouth when it came to picking on those smaller than he was. Have you ever noticed how bullies are really the biggest cowards? They act as though they have great courage, but in reality have none at all. Now, the symbolism that I had read already, that the lion symbolized Americans who get worn down, basically weakened by the system, that lose their courage. Another example could be when they go in the court system and they don't recognize that the court system speaks in an entirely different language and legalese. And this is why attorneys who are licensed through the Bar Association, they have to go through training, and they have to study the Black's Law Dictionary, which is comprised of separate legal terms. Because, see, a lot of people don't understand the regular, not only the regular English language has another version of it that is more, I don't want to use the term ancient, but older. Like if you've ever heard of Old English, there's other versions of it. It also was based out of one of the parent languages, Latin. And some of the words that we use, we were taught growing up. We weren't taught the legal meaning. We were taught just one of the meanings of the word. For example, I was sharing with a friend of mine, to keep it simple, the word understand. We were taught in grade school growing up, Webster's Dictionary would teach the word understand means to comprehend. But however, the legal terminology, there's a separate definition. Legally, it means you accept the contract. And I did a previous video in the past where I gave an example how many years ago I was pulled over by the police, and they're trained similar to how lawyers and judges are trained to speak in a certain way, where he stated at the time I was pulled over, my first ever traffic ticket in Allen Park, Michigan. He said, you do understand you were doing 72 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. Now, what he was doing, the script that he was verbally going over was getting me to be in a frame of reference, to be in agreements, meaning to accept the contract unknowingly, subconsciously. That's also another term. He was getting my acquiescence, for me to acquiescence, to accept, to agree, saying, yes, you do understand you were speeding, you were doing so-and-so. And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. More times he gets you to say yes. You're not even realizing that you're going deeper and deeper into the contracts. And I won't get into, there's other ways once you learn, and even dealing with the court system separately, how to properly exit the matrix. And one of the things you have to study, and I'm still a student myself, is you have to learn the terminology and how to properly speak. And it's one of the rules when people say, how do you get access to the money, to the birth certificate, just to make a long story short, you have to become very proficient with the grammar. I remember a gentleman saying many years ago when I first learned about this movement, there was a book called Cracking the Code. And he used to go over the definitions. The terminology are very important. And I didn't understand at the time, using the very word, but using it in the basic manner that you have to really study in depth. And it's even a scripture in the Bible that says, study to show thyself approved, and that has been utilized as an example in different documents. So let's see if there was another example I wanted to go over. Okay, this is one with David Icke's form. Says there was something specifically, as you see, this is dealing with the zip code, some other things, geographically. Kansas, that was based in the Wizard of Oz, is geographically located in the center of the United States. Those of you all who are into sacred geometry, stuff like that, but it's more cryptid, as you guys can see from reading this document. Trying to find the part where he was mentioning there was a particular definition I wanted to go over. I don't see it offhand. Okay, total means everything. I think because there's a translation from Italian that when the Wicked Witch, when she wanted Toto the dog, that actually is an Italian word that translates to that means everything. And okay, let me see. I have to read that. As you guys can see, this is sort of a freestyle, so you guys, as I'm doing this in real time, you can read right here. Where's the part at that I want to go over? But if not, I may have to just go to the next page. But you get the concept that this just shows more validity, more of a breakdown of the correlation of how the Wizard of Oz applies to the whole straw man thing. And the proper legal definition is in lingus. But there are other terms that are legally used to describe when referring to the vessel. Like vessel is another one, the legal person. It's a number of things. It's an organization. It's a legal entity that's been captured. So these documents go over pretty much the validity. Okay, down here goes over how a straw man is a person with a fictitious name written in legalese. Remember, I said that earlier. Language foreign to the rules of English grammar. See down there, that's how they maintain an advantage over us. And then I see somewhere in here, just skimming through, the word ace is etymology related to the word axe, or in a deck of cards, the only card above the king is the ace, which is says, I guess it's equivalent to God, one of the Axis powers of World War II. Okay, wow. So I have to read through this. There's a lot of different allegories to describe how this movie is not a coincidence. The author who wrote the book, and this was right around the time the Federal Reserve Act was signed in 1913, and there was a movie done to break down what they had orchestrated many, many years ago, what they had planned in advance. So going back to the chart, who are our modern day masters or controllers that set this up? As you guys can obviously see, this chart says it was published in 1976, so this is old. But you can imagine, just using this as an example, some years back, I was doing some research, and a guy I used to work with, he no longer works with the company anymore. He actually started his own company, which I commended him for, and he had a PI license, and he shared this with me. I actually had gone over this document before, but I asked him, and he sent this to me in an email, and I wanted to use this as reference. I've always wanted to do a video on this, but I'm just going to skip through, as you guys can see, this flow chart that goes over like who the shareholders are of basically the Federal Reserve banking system, to kind of help you all connect the dots behind the masters. And it's going to go over how these people are connected to major corporations. Now, this is an older document, and it's showing you when these documents, like it's saying, this chart too was published in 1983. So this is older material, but still relevant in terms of giving you a point of reference, infrastructure to how what's going on in modern day society. See how they're using the term trust company after that particular name. So I'm just scrolling through the chart right here. I'm going to scroll down. Okay, it's saying this part in chart 3 was published in 1976. It says the David Rockefeller chart shows the link between the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Standard Oil of Indiana, General Motors, and Allied Chemical Corporation, Eugene Meyer Family, and Equitable Life, J.P. Morgan. Okay, says David Rockefeller, chairman of the board of Chase Manhattan. You know, that's based in New York. Okay, this is showing the different corporations. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you guys can see from the screen capture video. And I did give a disclaimer. This is in reference to the Fair Use Act under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted pictures. These are mainly dealing with pictures or material that may be copywritten, and it's in reference to the laws because the laws codes are copywritten. So this is in reference. I'm showing you guys validity. This is a website that you guys can pull up. I would document this information as well, but showing in here, wow, Northwest Airlines, obviously Northwestern Bell Telephone Company. You know who that is connected with. That's basically AT&T, but shows you how this document was published in 1976. Remember how the government, they said they had a monopoly years ago because of the antitrust laws, and there's been some controversy going on with the censorship, with individuals claiming that certain media organizations, big tech giants, haven't been in violation of antitrust laws is highly inaccurate if you understand how trust laws go way back. And I'm just going off the top of the head. By the way, even what happened with Microsoft some years ago, I saw the hearings on TV, national TV, by the way. They aired that publicly. They had to break up, remember Microsoft to a degree. Then it's showing this part, seeing Pacific Northwestern Bell. I still see their logo, like they may be a sponsor for like some of the college football games. And see how it has in between this portion where I have the cursor, it says right above AT&T. So, wow. So it says mutual benefit life insurance. So you'll see all of these different companies that these individuals will scroll up, these families showing you there's a connection. They're shareholders. I saw where this says Lazar Brothers. They had a store down in Ohio. I don't know if it's still down there. It was like a Macy's or Hudson's department store, but that's the name of an actual family. And so if you scroll down here, you see how this says Guaranty Trust. So they have trust account set up. Now, this is not, once again, financial or legal advice. This is just to give you guys a rundown, so you guys will have validity. You can connect the dots. I'm still learning myself. I don't claim to be an expert, but just wanted to show you there is valid evidence out here for those naysayers and gatekeepers that try to say that this information is not true. Okay, let's see what time. Where are we at? We're at, looks like, said 32 minutes in. Okay, not bad. So we're going to scroll down. Wow, it says Alan Dulles Sullivan. It says director of CIA. Yeah, see, these are some older documents. This shows you how what they refer to as the deep state, how the influential families could control different departments of government and private contractors, to show you the control mechanism, how they're shareholders of the Federal Reserve banking system secretly, and how they were in control of many. Because remember, in corporate America, based on your degree, the corporate jobs generally pay more money or pay better than mom and pop jobs or mom and pop businesses. These major corporations that you see are part of this flow chart right here that you all can study. As I'm just scrolling through, so I wanted to give you all an idea. And we scroll down. This is some more information. Now, I have this map right here on this screen. It says map of the Federal Reserve System, and you guys can see this website. Says www.federalreserve.gov. So it's not like they're hiding this. You can pull this up online This shows you the map and how it was shown in a previous video, the dollar bills. If I blow this up, how that's a G based out of, showing you where this is issued out of. G for Chicago. Okay, I don't know C offhand. I think that's Philadelphia, because they don't, on the fives and the bigger bills, it's different in terms of where it's issued out of. It has like a different type of encryption in terms of telling you which bank it's issued out of. Now this one is E for, it's just issued out of the Bank of Richmond, Virginia. Okay, this one's K. I already know offhand that's issued out of Dallas, Texas. And if you go down to the banks in person, like I've seen people on like protesting down there from different videos. I've never been to Texas offhand. I would like to go one day to visit. That's one of the states I've never been to, from what I know offhand. But if you go before the Federal Reserve building that is located down there, they have a K, like a monument or some type of statue with the emblem with that letter on there, by the way. I noticed, just to give you guys some additional information. B, this is issued out of New York. See, it says, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. There's individuals that tell you the private sector doesn't exist, that it's not true, that it's fake. But it's telling you right on the Federal Reserve note. It doesn't say money, it's Federal Reserve note legally. But it's saying this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Key word. But individual gatekeepers out there will tell you it's no private sector. It's telling you right on a currency. Oh, and I won't. Here's another document that individuals will try to tell you there's no correlation. The CUSIP number is not true. It's all fake. You can pull this up online too, by the way. So this is under fair use, by the way. So all these documents were online. It's public domain. That's another thing. When there's all these documents that I'm going over, you can pull up online. It is public domain. Means it's available to the public to research for those out there. So I wanted to provide, the purpose of this video is validity. I wanted to kind of give you guys a quick rundown of some of the information. So without further ado, I went over action-packed information in this webinar. See, is the national debt. I showed what the real price of silver is supposed to be at right here. Go over real quick. We go to coinflation.com. Let's see if we get a different reading in real time. Okay, it dropped down a little bit more. See, 1566 now. So $15. So why is it this amount when this national debt clock is showing it's supposed to be at this amount? See, it says now dollar to silver ratio 5.98 per ounce, but it's showing in 1913 it was 260. So the dollar's losing its purchasing power, and look, this national debt is increasing. And then it says the debt that's owed per citizen. That means every U.S. citizen. And it's some information, powerful information I didn't go over, but I'll give you guys some homework to do. I have mentioned it in a previous video in the past. And this was right around the time of the Federal Reserve Act was signed. Look up the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. And it was not implemented and enforced until what happened in 1933 through the enforcement of the Emergency War Powers Act and some other things that took place. So going over heavy information. So those out there, they run off the top of the head. There's gatekeepers and people who will convince you up and down that this is a scam. Now, I'm not saying you don't have scams out there, people who are ill-informed, who just misinformed. It's not their fault. This is why I'm here, just to go over, at least provide validity, basic information. But this, some of this information I do understand is meant to be kept private. There are some other things that could be, I could go maybe more in depth, high level. But I just wanted, the purpose of this video and why I gave an overview was to provide validity and credible information that this stuff is not hearsay. This is information. If you're willing to research and do the homework, you can pull up online. a lot out here, and it's valid, very credible. So without further ado, gonna go get ready to shut things down. So if you guys want to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. You can follow me on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource, and of course on YouTube at Dorsey's Resource. Appreciate your thumbs up out there. Don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and subscribe, and you're welcome to share this video. Until next time, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, take care.